Good morning and thank you for joining us this morning for our 30-minute webinar on enhancing a corporate website. My name is Sophie Hole-Smith and I'm the marketing manager here at BergHind Joseph. I head up all of the marketing for the company with a particular focus and experience in digital marketing and social media. I'm also joined by my colleague Pete Meadows, who is the business development manager here and who has extensive experience in website development, working within the digital space for firms including Henschott and Investors. So that's a few housekeeping pieces out of the way. In terms of an agenda for this morning, first off, I will be speaking about what companies from the Fortune 500 are doing with their websites to engage with their stakeholders. Pete will then tackle the issue of why website design is so important today and who we believe has got it right. He will then progress on to an overview of the key aspects that need to be addressed, from navigation and accessibility right through to visual aesthetics. So without further ado, let's get started. So our research and strategy department have recently completed an in-depth study called Global Players, which looks at the websites of the top 100 companies in the Fortune Global 500. Of course, I can supply a copy of the report to you following this presentation if you wish, but to give you an overview of our findings, we found that multinational organisations are using their websites today in three key ways. The first is leading with ideas and innovation. The second is creating social value, and the third is opening up to dialogue. So to tackle each one of these in turn, firstly the idea of leading with ideas and innovation. One of the most fundamental findings of the study, whereby global companies are attempting to address global challenges such as ageing societies, economic development, climate change and rapid urbanisation. One of the key companies featured, along with all of the others that are highlighted on your screen right now, was GE, who from the outset leads with the concept of ideas and innovation. So if I just go over to their website briefly, we're now onto the GE website, and you can see right at the top they've got this strapline, imagination at work, which obviously creates this idea of innovation before you even delve anywhere else. But then they have a dedicated innovation section. So if I click onto this, you can see that we are faced with imagination equals innovation, following on from the strapline. But also below that, we've got a number of areas where they've developed innovations to try and resolve specific challenges that are occurring worldwide. These can be anything from, say, cleaner power generation by creating alternative power sources, right through to healthcare research and helping to find or develop solutions that enable earlier diagnosis of diseases. In addition to this, GE also have their GE show located at the top. So if I click on this here, they've actually got a different platform whereby they've developed a number of videos to showcase how they're developing various innovations. Scrolling down the page, we've got the idea of future flight, whereby GE is trying to tackle aircraft health and also air traffic management, and how it's trying to reduce delays and cancellations through its innovative technologies. In addition to that, how GE is turning the world's oldest energy source, the sun, into one of its newest ones through the latest solar power innovation. So if I just move back to our presentation, of course some companies such as GE or other companies we analyse like AXA, Allianz and Shell have huge R&D budgets and dedicated teams of researchers. So I'm not proclaiming that you have to be on par with them and single-handedly tackle the issue of global warming or find a solution to world peace. But you can take this concept of ideas and innovation to generate ideas that would be of interest or relevance to your audience. For example, a blog is a good starting point, or even a knowledge bank area where you can share, for example, concepts on industry trends or offer opinion on what's afoot in your marketplace. To give you a basic example, I recently posted a piece on our blog about how digital media should be integrated into the marketing mix. It received hundreds of page views, was tweeted and retweeted several times on Twitter, and was shared by various individuals on LinkedIn. Instantly, you can see that BergHind Joseph has become more visible in a variety of channels, but has also added value to its visitors, which gains much more traction and credibility in the long term. If I go on to the second idea that our study tackled, is this idea of creating social value. And this is where companies want to be seen as creators of social value as well as financial value. This concept really takes the idea of corporate responsibility mainstream, something which hasn't been done in the past. So, for example, hard-nosed organisations like Nestle, Unilever, BNP Paribas and GE are beginning to talk about sustainability as a business opportunity, wrapping corporate responsibility into business strategies rather than seeing it as a reputational insurance policy or PR exercise. So if we go over to one of the examples that we touched on in our actual study, Toyota's global website, they actually outwardly state within their sustainability section, we contribute to the sustainable development of society and the earth. And as you can see below, they've got a number of different areas that relate to corporate responsibility, from CSR initiatives, environmental responsibility, and corporate citizenship. Now, whilst it may be difficult to create social value on the same level as Toyota, you may want to think, for example, about a charity initiative your company has got involved in and featuring it on your website, or alternatively highlight the work your company is doing in the community, or ways your organisation is reducing its carbon footprint. Don't underestimate the value that customers and prospects put on these things. Showing that you care gives a real human element to your company, and customers and prospects really open up to this. The final area that I want to talk about briefly is this idea of opening up to dialogue, whereby global companies are really beginning to use their websites as engaging multimedia communication platforms. Social media, of course, really is a buzzword at the moment for individuals and corporations, but companies like Hewlett-Packard, IBM and Verizon are fully embracing the world of social media as they seek to create dialogue with their stakeholders. We drilled down into a number of the biggest corporations' websites to look at how they are actually using social media. And interestingly enough, we found that many of these top companies contained links to official social media channels, which is a big contrast if you think back to about 3 years ago. And what I mean by this is icons that are really sitting on a homepage or a like, which actively promote social media channels. When we drilled down, we actually found that 28% of the companies we analysed had Facebook pages, equally 28% had Twitter, 20% had YouTube accounts, and 8% and 6% respectively had Flickr or LinkedIn accounts. Equally, we also found that many companies operate microsites containing blogs and social media links, as well as having long-standing online communities. I have to say, though, that Nestle probably is one of the bravest big corporates when it comes to the use of social media channels overall. They really have taken this concept of opening up to dialogue to a new level. And if you haven't been on their Facebook or Twitter accounts, I really encourage you to do so because it's quite interesting reading. But I've actually taken a few snapshots of comments here from their Facebook page, shown on the left, and some Twitter comments which are shown on the right. So if you just take a look at the Facebook comments, you can see that Nestle really is fully embracing this idea of opening up to dialogue, enabling people to voice their views, but equally giving them a mechanism to respond to comments where appropriate. Equally, Nestle's Twitter page enables a similar mechanism. So you can see on the comment on the right, a customer had a problem with a product, so Nestle were instantly able to respond and offer a solution by saying, "We're sorry you had a problem with our product, please let us help," and providing contact details. Equally, when a customer had a concern about the development of a product, Nestle were able to promptly respond by saying, "Thanks for your concern. Nestle products have never been tested on animals, and you can find out more here." This really is a great mechanism for Nestle to deal with its various different audiences. and it fully embraces the idea that to be part of the conversation, you need to be in it. So if the biggest corporations in the world are using social media in a big way, it's obviously seriously worth considering integrating it into your corporate website if you haven't done so already. The one or two things that I really recommend that you do before taking the plunge in this is, firstly, just because everyone else is doing it doesn't necessarily mean it's right for you. A need must exist for you to have a Facebook or a Twitter or a YouTube account. Secondly, make sure you have a strategy in place that completely fulfills the need for developing a social media channel in the first place. And equally ensure that you have the support in place to really enhance your social media presence. You need people who are going to be designated tweeters or Facebookers and who will promote the company but in a good way on these platforms. There's no point having a structure whereby every tweet needs to be approved by the CEO before it's sent out. This defeats the object of Twitter and it's not feasible to maintain. Therefore, you need to trust and empower those to project your company positively. And finally, with whatever channels you do decide to get involved in, if you're pushing out information from your website, ensure you have share icons there. This enables your visitors to push out content they have come across on your site to their followers, raising the awareness of your company further. So there's a whistle-stop tour of our recent research study into some of the world's most influential corporate websites, which leads quite nicely onto what Pete will be talking about around why website design is so important.
Thanks very much, Sophie. Okay, so we've taken a look at what some of the largest companies in the world do with their websites and how they're generating value for their audiences. And now we're going to take a look at some of the finer details and points of further consideration when working on any digital project or a redevelopment of your own website in the future. Now I'm going to come on to some real world examples, but I just want to cover a few basic points to start with. And I think the first is fairly self-explanatory. First impressions count. Studies have shown that you've got around 50 milliseconds to capture the attention of your audience, after which they're going to form a subconscious opinion about your company based solely on their perception of your website. The term web design refers to more than just the visual aesthetics of your website. Today's web developers and content managers must also consider navigation, usability, accessibility, SEO strategy, editorial strategy. The list goes on. So it's important to understand that there are many facets to web design, and visual aesthetics is actually one of the last things to be considered when creating any new web presence or thinking about enhancing your site. Good web design is also important as you need to match user expectation. Your audience is more often than not web savvy. They visit a large number of websites each week, and you have to ensure that you can match their expectations that are gained elsewhere to really ensure that your company is perceived as highly as others. But something that I touched on earlier, there are a number of practical considerations for any web development project. How will the project grow in the future? Will it work with new viewing devices? The iPhone being an iPad proliferation being a great example of this, with many websites that were developed in Flash a few years ago hurriedly being redeveloped into standard HTML format to make sure that they're compatible on the new Apple devices. So how will your website adapt to any expected technology advancements in the future? They may not be easy questions to answer, but they should still be asked at the beginning of any web project. So now we've had a quick summary of why web design is so important. Let's look at some of the finer details, beginning with visual aesthetics. Now, it's important to understand that your website may be the only point of contact the majority of your audience will have your company. Not everyone's going to visit your offices, not everyone's going to buy your services, and not everyone's going to meet your staff on a one-to-one basis. So for them, it really is the only touch point that they will have with your company. So therefore, it builds brand recognition, and it ultimately contributes to your reputation, be it good or bad. It's also important to understand that the web evolves very, very quickly. It's perhaps the fastest evolving medium available, with trends created that then die off equally as quickly. So we don't necessarily suggest that you rebuild every 3 months, but certainly think about implementing an ongoing review structure with perhaps a more formal review once a year, and maybe a plan to refresh or redevelop your website on a sort of a 3-year basis. Current trend evidence points towards a less is more approach. Websites now are being pared back in terms of visual aesthetics. We're seeing a move away from flashy moving graphics, and they're sort of turning into a slightly more sort of sleek and subtle appearance. And I think that is in part down to the increase of mobile devices and the use of mobile devices, and how quickly your website may or may not load over a 3G GPRS connection. So that's certainly something to consider. But it's also important to understand that more than ever now, every page of your website can be viewed as a home page. And what do we mean by this? Well, Google will often point users towards internal content pages to deliver more accurate results based on the user's query. So you need to make sure that your pages act as standalones in terms of both messaging and branding. When somebody lands on an internal landing page, does this page make sense out of context? And to put it into some sort of statistical coherence, 40% of visitors hit the careers page of one of our clients, over and above coming in via the homepage and navigating to the careers page directly. So it really just highlights the importance of having landing pages that really can stand on their own 2 feet. So let's have a look at a couple of websites that put this into practice. Now, the first one I'm going to show you is mint.com. It was a Webby Award winner this year for visual aesthetics. It's a website that helps people manage their finances. And it's an example of a corporate website done very, very well. In terms of visual aesthetics, it's pared back. It's a subtle yet sleek design, which is very considered. It's very on trend, and importantly, it's very representative of their brand. There's some fantastic top-level typography, helping you to very quickly gain an understanding of what the website is about. Excellent call to action buttons, very, very clear navigation, some fantastic design just in terms of being able to represent the information in a simple yet stylish manner. But they're also using a lot of the aspects that Sophie was talking about earlier with regards to creating social value, integration of social media. So they offer content for download over the Android and iPhone. They also allow people to connect via the Facebook, RSS, and Twitter feeds. And really, it is an example of a very well designed website that works and is very focused on the messaging over and above any visual flashy appearance. Another website that is hopefully more familiar to our UK viewers, Innocent Drinks, fantastic brand, fantastic website. It's bold, it's very simple concept but very well executed. It's a superb website. It's fun, it's engaging. And again, they're using these social media integration in terms of bringing in Twitter feeds, bringing in daily thoughts, which is part of the Innocent brand, being very personable, being very friendly. But again, they're also using the Facebook like button, which has had 99,000 people like. They also have a Twitter follow button, and you can drop in your email to sign up to their newsletters for future push content. And they also do a good job of promoting their range of products. But again, you can reach out to the company via their YouTube channel and Facebook and Twitter. The website is available in multi-languages. They also have a link to the Innocent Foundation, which is representative of some of their creating social value initiatives. But in terms of the design, it's very memorable, and it has great impact. So that's a whistle-stop tour of visual aesthetics. We're now going to move on to navigation, accessibility, and usability, terms that I'm sure you've all heard. Here we're looking at Mooshell as an example, and in fact, let's have a look at their live example website. What we'll have a look at first is navigation. Now, Mouchel have gone for a very simplistic but very intuitive navigation system whereby top level items are represented in the left-hand menu. When you click into one of these, the content for that area is centered in is available in the center of the page, and secondary navigation is offered in the right-hand sidebar. And that's the same site-wide, so it doesn't matter which section I go into. Primary level navigation is ever present on every page. The middle box is full of content for that section, and secondary and tertiary levels of navigation are available in the right-hand column. So a consistent style of navigation across the site really helps me as a user feel comfortable and feel at ease with the website. They've also enabled a lot of tools for accessibility. So perhaps if I have issues with colour blindness, I'm able to change the colour contrast of the website at the click of a button, perhaps making the text stand out better for me. Or maybe if I've left my glasses at home, I can make the text size bigger. And perhaps I've hurt my hand and I'm unable to use a mouse. It's okay. They've got full access keys assigned to the website, enabling me to surf the website using a keyboard only. So they've really taken great lengths to make sure that their website is accessible, that it's usable, and that it's easy to navigate. So just sort of to summarize navigation, accessibility, and usability, it's important that you consider the user journey and how content is going to relate to each other. And typically, if you were looking at the redevelopment of a website, you would start off by creating a sitemap and working out how content is going to relate to one another and what your various levels of pages are going to be. You would then work on a wireframe, which is the placement of content on a page and how it all relates to each other. It's important to standardize for quick and intuitive browsing, and going against convention can create problems. I think it was Donald Norman's study of affordance back in 1998 that taught us that familiarity with an object's purpose allows us to know what to do just by seeing it. So when we see navigation, we know to click it. We know the affordance of a link and we know what it's for. And once we know that, wherever and whenever we see it, we will know how to use it. So there's a very deliberate shift in terms of standardization of navigation, and it's with good reason. It's also important to consider the future growth of your website. If you have a new service line come into action, or you want to create a new section of the website later in 6 months' time, how's that going to fit into your existing design? Do you have space within your top-level navigation for this new button and this new section to sit? Being able to create some slack into your initial design at the early stages makes further inclusion at a later date much easier. And something that's often overlooked is that it's important to structure your website in a way that's comprehensible to your audience. What do we mean by this? Well, it might make sense to structure your website in the way that your organization is structured internally. It makes more sense for the end user to have a website that's structured by, for example, product. So try not to create an exact duplicate representation of how your business is structured internally, externally. It's much more important to think about your audience, think about what they're looking to see, and how they would expect your content to be structured. But above all, we're going to go back to the 3 C's: consistency, consistency, and consistency. You don't want your users getting lost or having to adapt to a new structure for individual pages or sections. Today's web audiences get very impatient, they get frustrated very quickly. So being consistent in terms of navigation will ensure that people stay on your website for longer, that they view more pages, and that it becomes the well-used resource that it should be. So we've had a look at visual aesthetics, we've covered navigation, accessibility, and usability, and finally I just want to touch on an area of engagement and interactivity, something that is becoming much more prevalent now, primarily due to the improvements in technology and reduction in cost barriers to entry. So technology that was once perhaps prohibitively expensive, or commercial content management systems that cost tens of thousands of pounds a year just to license, are literally available now off the shelf for free for anybody to go and use and create a content managed website with. And new standards of technology are always being created, HTML5 being the latest example, designed to try and replace Flash to some degree. So new functionality is always coming to market, and the cost of that functionality is coming down, meaning that we can do more with websites today than we could yesterday, and we'll be able to do more with them again tomorrow. We're also seeing a marked shift of ownership of content from agencies to clients. What does this mean? Well, it means that clients are now able to take more control over their websites via their content management systems. They can log in, they can quickly make an update, create a new page, add a news article, and it speeds up the whole process. You don't have to go to your agency, put in the request, pay extra money, and wait for that request to be fulfilled. But it also brings with it a certain level of responsibility, and it's important that clients understand any rules on brand guidelines, on editorial strategy, on a consistent tone of voice for content, not just now, but in 6 months and 12 months and 18 months' time. So, extra training for internal website managers may be required to ensure that you stay on brand and on message. And going back to the technology, websites are no longer information repositories. I think there used to be a time where people would go to your website, they were looking for a very specific piece of information. As soon as they'd got that piece of information, they would leave again. But now websites are becoming more content rich, they're full of video, they're full of multimedia. Personalization is a big thing that we're going to come on to some live examples on in a second. Integration of third-party content, such as dynamic data feeds or perhaps social media feeds. And also push content, so newsletter sign-up, RSS, those sorts of technologies that allow you to touch your audience with information even when they're not viewing your website. So all of these things combine to create a more engaging and interactive experience, but one that has real benefits for the user and for the end client and website owner. So let's just have a look at a couple of examples. The first one that I'm going to show you is Aviva PLC. They were, I believe, the first corporate company within the UK to create a registration process and a personalisation process for the investor section of their website. So as an interested stakeholder, I can come to their website, I can register my details, and I can select to see the information that is of most importance to me when I next come back to the Aviva site. And this really does help make it an important resource for me as an interested stakeholder. And it moves the website up my preference list, and I'm more likely to go to the Aviva website for information on Aviva than I would go to a third-party financial data provider, for example. So again, really bringing in the benefits of personalization. And I can't think of another example that does this any better than the BBC website. The BBC as an organisation have many different types of audience, a wide cross-section of society, all interested in different types of content and different types of media. But rather than take the approach where they want to create different sections of their website for different audiences, they've tried to allow, or they have allowed, for complete personalisation of the website to suit individual users. So I'm able to take a modular section of their homepage and move it to an area that suits me best. I'm able to remove a section completely. I'm able to edit the content that I can see within the specific section. So let's say I'm interested in snooker and cycling. I can just tick those boxes, click save, and all of a sudden that information is available to me. And when I come back to the website the next time, the same information will be there. So the BBC have taken great steps to make sure that their website is fully customizable on a per user basis, to really bring benefits to the user, keep people coming back, and stop them going elsewhere for the information. So that's my section on visual aesthetics, navigation, accessibility and usability, and engagement and interactivity in websites. I hope it's been useful, and I'm now going to hand back over to Sophie for a summary.
So just to wrap up this morning's session, hopefully we've highlighted to you some areas which we use and what others consider to be key in corporate websites today. Of course, that there are the key ideas that I mentioned, which came out of the research study around creating social value, opening up to dialogue and leading with ideas and innovation. But then there are the important elements which Pete spoke about too, from the ideas of visual aesthetics and the example with instant drinks, right through to the ideas of engagement and interactivity with the likes of the BBC. The fundamental aspect of all of this, though, is that enhancing your corporate website need not cost the earth and doesn't have to be a complete overhaul. Much of what's needed and much of what we've discussed are just some of the simple ingredients which can be implemented in a variety of guises. So that really brings us to the end of this morning's webinar. I'd like to thank you for joining us. Pete or I can be reached on the email addresses on your screen now, or you can contact BergHind Joseph via LinkedIn or Twitter at BergHind Joseph. As I mentioned at the start of the webinar, the slides will be available to view again on our website, BergHindJoseph.com. But I'll also email you a copy of the recording should you want to revisit the content. And finally, if you have any other ideas on other webinars you'd like to see us host, please do email me, sophie@BergHindJoseph.com. But I'd like to thank you for your time.